What would you do if you had to wait for years for your loved one to return? For a dog named Max, this was not just a question, it was a reality. Show a silhouette of a dog waiting by a gate or window, implying longing and devotion. Max was no ordinary dog. He was a German shepherd, known for his strength and courage, but his heart was where his true greatness lay. This is a story of a dog whose loyalty to his owner surpassed time, distance, and even the passage of seasons. For 5 long years, Max waited, never wavering in his devotion, never once giving up hope. His owner, Lisa, had to leave suddenly due to unforeseen circumstances. She had promised a return, but as the months turned into years, Max never forgot. Every day, he would stand at the same spot, watching the road, his eyes scanning for any sign of her. No matter how much time passed, Max believed she would come back, just as she had promised. This is more than just a story about a dog waiting. It's about the power of faithfulness, the kind of loyalty that only a dog can show, a bond so deep that nothing could break it. Max's journey teaches us about the kind of love that goes beyond words, a love that endures even the most uncertain of circumstances. Max's story is one of the most heartwarming tales of loyalty and faithfulness that you'll ever hear, and it's a reminder that love is sometimes the greatest force of all. Max's life before the wait. Max was the kind of dog that everyone adored. He was a German shepherd, strong and loyal, with a heart full of love for his owner, Lisa. Their bond was something truly special, one that couldn't be broken by anything in the world. From the moment Lisa adopted Max as a puppy, it was clear they were destined to be together. Lisa had always dreamed of having a dog to share her life with, and Max was the perfect companion. His playful nature and his gentle demeanor made him a joy to be around, not just for Lisa, but for everyone who met him. Together, Max and Lisa shared countless adventures. Whether it was hiking through the woods, running along the beach, or simply spending quiet evenings at home, Max was always by Lisa's side. He loved nothing more than being with her. Their days were filled with joy. Max would wag his tail furiously whenever Lisa arrived home, no matter if she had been gone for 5 minutes or 5 hours. It wasn't just a typical dog-owner relationship. They were best friends, and their connection was unspoken, but deeply understood. Max had an innate ability to sense Lisa's emotions. On the days when she was feeling down, Max would curl up beside her, his head resting on her lap, as if to say, "I'm here for you." He had a calming presence that Lisa cherished, and the two of them had a rhythm that was perfectly in sync. It didn't matter where they were or what they were doing. As long as they were together, life felt complete. They had built a world for themselves, a world where love, trust, and companionship were the cornerstones. It was a life full of laughter, playfulness, and a sense of security that Lisa had always longed for. The tragic separation. But life has a way of throwing curveballs, and things were about to change in a way neither Lisa nor Max could have anticipated. Lisa received an unexpected job offer that she couldn't refuse. It was an opportunity of a lifetime, one that would take her across the country to a new city, far away from the life she had built with Max. While the opportunity was exciting, it was also filled with a heavy burden. Lisa had to make a heartbreaking decision. She couldn't bring Max with her. She knew it wasn't practical, and the move was going to be challenging enough without having to adjust to caring for Max in a completely unfamiliar environment. The moment Lisa told Max she had to leave, his world seemed to crumble. He couldn't understand why she was packing up, why her bags were filled with things he had never seen before. Max sat by her side, his eyes wide with confusion, sensing that something was wrong. He couldn't grasp the reason for the sudden change, but he knew that something was happening, and his world was slipping away. Lisa, too, was heartbroken. She never wanted to leave him, but the circumstances were beyond her control. She knelt down and held Max in her arms, whispering words of reassurance. "I'll be back soon, Max," she said softly, though deep down, she wasn't sure when or if that would be. On the day Lisa left, Max watched her drive away from the driveway, his tail wagging slowly, as though he couldn't believe what was happening. He stood there, confused and sad, not understanding why she had to go or when she would return. His heart ached with the loss of her presence. For the first time in his life, he felt alone, and the house felt emptier than ever before. Max didn't understand time, but he understood the absence of his best friend. days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months, but Lisa was still gone. Max continued to wait, a loyal companion to the very end, believing that one day she would come back. It was a cruel turn of fate, one that neither of them could have predicted. Max was left behind in a world that had once been filled with joy, now silent and still. He didn't know how to cope with the emptiness, but he made a decision that would change his life forever. He would wait for Lisa's return, no matter how long it took. And so, every day, he stood by the door, watching the road, hoping that one day he would see her again. Max's loyalty. As the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, Max felt a growing emptiness in his heart. The house, once filled with the sounds of Lisa's laughter and the comfort of her presence, had become eerily quiet. The familiar scent of her still lingered in the air, but she was no longer there to comfort him, to play with him, or to take him on the walks they once enjoyed together. Despite the passing of time, Max didn't give up hope. He held on to the promise Lisa had made, the promise that she would return. Max believed in that promise with every fiber of his being, and he knew that, deep down, she would come back for him. Lisa's absence, however, didn't deter Max from staying faithful. As the days turned into months, he began to form a quiet routine, one that was driven by hope, loyalty, and unwavering faith. Every morning, Max would wake up and trot over the front door, his ears perking up at the slightest sound of footsteps or a car approaching. He would sit by the gate, his eyes scanning the horizon, watching the road for any sign of Lisa's return. Even when the seasons changed, when the first signs of winter crept in with cold winds and the distant chirp of birds became quieter, Max remained vigilant. He didn't care that the world around him was moving on, that life was continuing without him. He had made a decision that would define the rest of his days. He would wait for Lisa, no matter how long it took. There was something deeply emotional about the way Max waited. It wasn't just that he waited. It was the unshakable faith he had in the belief that one day, Lisa would come back. His loyalty was pure, and it transcended the concept of time. Every day, without fail, he would return to the same spot, looking out at the same road, hoping to see a familiar figure in the distance. As the days wore on, Max's determination never wavered. No matter how long it had been, no matter how much the world around him changed, Max was resolute in his belief that Lisa would return. In the quiet moments, when the sun set and the house grew dark, Max would rest his head on the cool ground by the gate, his eyes still fixed on the road, his ears straining to catch any sound that might signal Lisa's arrival. Sometimes, he would let out a soft whine, a sound filled with longing, but there was no response. Yet, despite this, Max's loyalty was never shaken. His heart, heavy with the weight of his decision, remained steadfast. He didn't need to see Lisa to know she was still out there, somewhere, and that one day she would return. The bond they had shared was too strong, too deep for him to simply forget. Max's decision wasn't based on mere hope. It was built on love. Love that had been nurtured over years of shared moments, of joy and companionship, and of an unspoken understanding that he would always be there for her, just as she had always been there for him. His loyalty wasn't something that could be quantified by the passing of time. For Max, time didn't matter. What mattered was a connection they shared, and he would hold on to that connection for as long as it took. As the months passed, the world around him moved on. People came and went, neighbors would stop to check on him, but Max never budged. His gaze remained fixed on the road, his heart filled with the quiet certainty that Lisa would return. Every day was a promise, a vow that he would keep until the end. It wasn't just about waiting. It was about believing that love, no matter how far apart, could conquer the distance and time that separated them. And so Max waited. The passage of time, however, was not kind to Max. Every day, he faced the elements, rain, snow, harsh winds, and scorching sun. But no matter how fierce the weather or how cold the nights grew, Max never wavered. His faith remained unbroken, and his resolve grew stronger with each passing day. The once bright, sunny days turned into overcast skies, and the lush greenery of spring gave way to the bare branches of winter. Yet, through it all, Max kept his post. His eyes never left the road, his ears never stopped listening for the sound of footsteps, and his heart never lost quiet hope that Lisa would one day return. The rain would come, soaking Max's fur and making the earth beneath him muddy and cold. But still, he stood there unwavering. The weight of the rain dripped from the tips of his ears, the droplets creating puddles around him, but Max didn't flinch. He would glance toward the sky, his eyes squinting against the falling drops, and then he would return to his watch, as though the world's storms had no power to shake his belief. Sometimes, after hours of waiting, the rain would let up and Max would retreat into the house, his fur soaked but his eyes still filled with anticipation. He'd shake himself off and resume his position by the gate, watching and waiting. When winter arrived, bringing with it biting winds and snowstorms, Max's determination didn't falter. The ground became slick with ice, the snow piling around him, but Max would push through it. The cold stung his paws and his breath formed little clouds in the frigid air, but Max didn't care. He had no need for comfort or warmth in that moment. His heart was set on one thing: Lisa's return. The snow would blanket everything around him, transforming the world into a quiet, still landscape, and Max would sit there, undeterred, staring into the distance, hoping for any sign of the one person who meant everything to him. There were days when the cold winds would howl through the trees, and Max's fur would become matted with the snowflakes that stuck to him. But he wouldn't move. His eyes remained fixed on the road, unwavering in their focus. His body, tired and worn from the harsh conditions, would tremble slightly from the cold, but it wasn't the chill that bothered him. It was the distance that separated him from Lisa that truly ached. Still, his faith remained. Spring brought with it a new set of challenges. The snow melted, the ground became wet and soft, and the days grew longer. Yet, with the arrival of warmer weather, Max's routine didn't change. He continued his vigil, even as the world around him blossomed and thrived. Flowers bloomed, trees regained their leaves, and people came out of their homes to enjoy the sunshine. But Max remained by the gate, patiently watching. His fur had become thinner, and the once glossy coat that gleamed in the sunlight had now become dulled and matted. But still, his loyalty never wavered. Even during the hottest days of summer, when the sun beat down relentlessly and the air grew heavy with humidity, Max didn't retreat into the shade. He stayed by the gate, sitting in the heat, his tongue hanging out and his body weary from the heat, but his eyes still searching the road. The sweat of summer would cling to his fur, and the ground beneath him would feel scorching, but Max held fast. The heat didn't bother him. It was nothing compared to the ache in his heart from being apart from Lisa. The days grew long, and Max's routine remained the same. Wait and hope. Hope that today might be the day. The seasons came and went, and with each passing day, Max grew older. His fur began to thin even more, his steps slower, and the weight of time seemed to press down on him. But Max's commitment to his post remained unshaken. Despite the hardships he faced, the rain that soaked him through, the snow that buried him, the heat that made his body ache, Max didn't budge. He would wait through it all, because he believed, with every ounce of his being, that Lisa would come back. As each year passed, Max's ritual became more than just a habit. It became a symbol of his undying loyalty. His faith never wavered, and though the world around him continued to change, Max's dedication remained constant. Every drop of rain, every gust of wind, every flake of snow, and every sun-drenched summer day was a testament to the unbreakable bond he shared with Lisa. And so, through every struggle, every hardship, Max waited, his belief unshaken, his love unwavering. Max's days had blended together, one indistinguishable from the next. His routine had become so deeply ingrained in him that he could no longer remember when it started or why it had begun. The long years of waiting had created a sense of timelessness, where each day felt like an extension of the last. The seasons had come and gone, and though Max's body had grown older and wearier, his heart remained steadfast in its belief that one day, Lisa would return. But as much as he had held on to the hope of that reunion, a sense of resignation had begun to creep in. The world around him had continued moving, while Max remained in his unyielding vigil, waiting for a miracle that felt increasingly distant. But then one fateful morning, something changed. It was as if the universe had decided it was time for the impossible to become possible. It began with a simple, unexpected moment, an event that, on the surface, seemed inconsequential. Max was sitting by the gate, as he always did, his eyes scanning the road, his ears alert to every sound. The morning had been like any other. Cool air, the soft rustle of leaves in the breeze, the distant chirping of birds. And yet, something in the atmosphere felt different. A neighbor, a kind-hearted woman who had seen Max every day for the past 5 years, approached the gate with her usual friendly smile. She had watched Max's dedication over the years, and had always felt a sense of sadness for the dog that waited so long without any sign of his owner. But that day, as she approached him, she noticed something in the air. She had overheard a conversation in town, a small, seemingly insignificant rumor, but one that made her pause. She had heard that a woman, Lisa, was returning to the area after years away, and that she might be coming back soon. The news hadn't been confirmed, but there was a glimmer of hope in it that ignited something inside her. She knelt down to Max's level, reaching out to stroke his fur gently. "You know, Max," she said softly, her voice full of compassion. "There's talk around town about a woman named Lisa. She's coming back soon, I think. You may not know it, but she's been thinking of you this whole time." Max's ears perked up, and for the first time in years, something stirred in his chest. His gaze sharpened, his body tensed, and his heart raced. He wasn't sure if it was the words themselves or the tone in her voice, but something in the air had shifted. It was a fleeting moment, just a few words spoken in passing, but for Max, it was a spark of something he had long since stopped expecting. Hope. For a long moment, Max didn't move. He simply stared at the road, his mind racing, his heart pounding. Could it be true? Had Lisa really been thinking of him all this time? Was there a chance that the years of waiting were not in vain? Max had heard many things in his time by the gate, whispers from passers-by, the sounds of distant cars. But this was different. This was a tangible thread, a hint of something real, something that might finally bring an end to his solitary watch. The neighbor stood up and smiled softly at him, as if to reassure him. "You never know, Max," she said gently. "Keep your eyes open, okay?" With that, she turned and walked away, leaving Max alone with a new flood of emotions and a strange sense of anticipation in the air. For the first time in years, Max felt a renewed sense of purpose. This wasn't just a passing comment. It was a possibility, a real chance that Lisa might be coming back. The thought took root in his heart, pushing aside the uncertainty that had clouded his mind. Max, who had spent years waiting without any clear sign of when or she would return, now had something to believe in again. He wasn't just waiting anymore. He was waiting for something specific. His loyalty, which had been unquestioning all along, now had a new kind of fire. The spark of hope had reignited his spirit, and for the first time in years, Max stood taller, his tail wagging slightly in anticipation. Though he had no way of knowing for sure, Max's heart had already started to prepare itself. The gate, which had become the symbol of his endless wait, now held a new meaning. It was no longer just a barrier. It was a threshold of something he had longed for. And with that thought, Max resumed his position by the gate, his gaze fixed on the road, his heart filled with a renewed sense of hope. Something incredible was about to happen. He could feel it. That morning began like any other. The sky was a soft shade of gray, with the first light of dawn gently creeping over the horizon. The world was still quiet, the air crisp and fresh, carrying the faint scent of dew on the grass. Max was already at his post, as he had been for the last 5 years, sitting faithfully by the gate, his eyes fixed on a familiar road that stretched out before him. The early morning light cast long shadows across the ground, and the peaceful stillness of the morning seemed to fill the space around him. As the minutes ticked by, Max's mind began to wander, his thoughts drifting to the one thing that had kept him grounded all this time. Lisa. He had been waiting for so long, and though he had never given up hope, the waiting had worn him down. His fur had grayed slightly at the edges, his body slower with age, but his spirit, his love for Lisa, had never wavered. It was as if the stillness of the world around him mirrored the stillness in his heart. He was waiting, as he always had, but that morning, something felt different. Max's ears twitched. A sound, a faint rustling, caught his attention. He shifted slightly, his gaze narrowing as he searched the road, his heart beginning to race. His eyes scanned the empty stretch of pavement, the familiar path he had watched every single day. But today was different. In the distance, far down the road, a figure appeared. At first, it was barely noticeable, just a shape moving slowly toward him. Max's eyes widened. His heart skipped a beat. Could it be? He stood up, his legs stiff from years of waiting, but he felt a renewed energy surging through him. The figure grew clearer with every passing second, and Max's body trembled with anticipation. His tail began to wag ever so slightly, as if it had instinctively recognized something that Max himself couldn't quite process yet. His breath quickened, and his ears stood at attention. Then, as the figure drew closer, Max's heart nearly stopped. There, standing before him, was Lisa. After 5 long years of waiting, after countless days of uncertainty and longing, there she was, the woman he had never stopped believing in. Max's eyes locked onto hers, and in that moment, time seemed to stand still. The world around them faded into the background, leaving only the two of them, Max and Lisa. Max's heart surged with joy, and without hesitation, he bounded toward her. His paws hit the ground with a burst of energy, and though his body was older, his spirit had never felt so young. His tail wagged furiously, his entire body vibrating with excitement. Lisa, too, began to run toward him, her eyes wide with disbelief and joy. The distance between them closed quickly, and when Max finally reached her, he leaped into her arms, his powerful body pressing against her as if to make up for the years of separation. Lisa laughed through her tears, her hands gripping him tightly, not wanting to let go. "Max!" she cried, her voice breaking with emotion. "Oh, Max, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to leave you. I never stopped thinking about you." Max's face pressed into her chest as if to say, "It's okay. I never stopped waiting." There was no need for words. The reunion was a testament to the love and loyalty that had never faltered. Max couldn't contain his excitement. His body trembled with joy, and his eyes sparkled with a mixture of recognition and relief. The years of waiting, the countless days spent by the gate, had culminated in this miraculous moment. Lisa was here in his arms, just as she had promised. He nuzzled her neck, his nose pressing into her skin, inhaling deeply, memorizing her scent once more. Every fiber of his being rejoiced in her presence, and he couldn't help but vocalize his happiness, letting out a series of joyful barks and whines. His tail wagged so vigorously that his whole body swayed with emotion. Lisa laughed through her tears, her heart overflowing with love and gratitude. She pulled back slightly to look into Max's eyes, her hands cupping his face. "You're still the same," she said, her voice filled with awe. Max responded by licking her hands, his way of saying, "I've always been here, waiting for you." The miracle of their reunion was not just in the physical presence of Lisa, but in the healing of a heart that had been broken by years of separation. Max's joy was palpable, infectious, spreading warmth to all who witnessed it. It was a testament to resilience, to hope, and to the unbreakable bond that ties us to our beloved companions. As Lisa and Max stood there, enveloped in their shared happiness, the sun broke through the clouds, casting a golden glow over them. It was as if the universe itself celebrated their reunion, acknowledging the depth of their connection. In that moment, Max was home again, not just in the physical sense, but in the truest sense of belonging by Lisa's side, where he had always been meant to be. Max's journey stands as a profound testament to the unwavering loyalty and deep bond that can exist between a dog and their human. His steadfast vigil over 5 long years exemplifies the purest form of faithfulness, reminding us of the lengths to which our furry companions will go for those they love. This story encourages us to reflect on our own relationships, prompting us to consider the importance of steadfastness and dedication in our connections with others. In a world that often seems to prioritize fleeting moments, Max's tale serves as a poignant reminder of the enduring power of commitment. His actions invite us to reevaluate our perceptions of loyalty, challenging us to embody such unwavering devotion in our own lives. As we witness Max's story, we are called to appreciate the profound impact of steadfast love and the lessons it imparts about the depth of connection possible between beings. If Max's story has touched your heart and reinforced your belief in the power of faith and loyalty, consider sharing it with your friends and family. In doing so, you not only spread a message of hope and devotion, but also foster a greater appreciation for the incredible bonds we share with our furry companions. Let Max's journey inspire us all to cherish and nurture the relationships that bring meaning and joy to our lives.